Hi, Michelle with LOGiC.baby, and I was asked to put together a really quick video on being a twin mom and NICU life. So I was thinking of some of the questions that I get a lot and was just going to share some of the information that I learned along the way in the NICU. So first of all, the first question I usually get is, did you want to be a twin mom? And the answer to that is, I love being a mom of twin boys, but no, I did not ever set out to purposely, intentionally try to grow two humans at one time in a single body. The other one is, if I'm pregnant with twins, am I for sure going to have to spend time in the NICU? And just like everybody else, that question is usually answered with maybe. Being pregnant with twins does increase your risk of needing to be in the NICU. It puts a lot of strain on mom's body. So most twin pregnancies don't go to term. You are at increased risk of premature delivery for various reasons: gestational diabetes, preeclampsia. Sometimes they just flat out run out of room. And then there's things called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome if they share a placenta. Sometimes there's more increased risk of cord prolapse, like one of them rolling over on a cord. Lots of different things. So most twin pregnancies do not go all the way to term, and then actually most OBs will deliver them at 37 weeks regardless of how far you go. So a lot of factors decide whether you are in the NICU or not. Those include whether baby is able to breathe without oxygen support. And the biggest thing is feeding. Like, are they able to coordinate the breathing using the nipple or breastfeeding and swallowing reflex that takes a while to develop? So that's why we spent the longest time in the NICU, was them learning how to feed. So our story, our two twin boys were born at 32 weeks and 3 days. They each needed a few days of oxygen support. And then they did get some TPN while their sort of digestive system was waking up. And then they spent the rest of the majority of the time learning how to eat. They had not developed that reflex, so we did a lot of feeding through the NG tube in their nose. And then we were learning how to eat from a bottle and a nipple and trying to breastfeed. And that's what took the most time with them being there. One of the other questions I get is, do they stay in the same room? Which they do. Most NICUs have a multiples room where twins, triplets, on that rare quadruplet occasion, but they are set up with multiple sets of equipment. So each baby got their own set of equipment. They got their own isolette. And as far as I know, they don't allow them to co-sleep. Wouldn't recommend it anyway. It's not really safe, but they're in their own isolettes, but they were always together. They do make every reasonable attempt. That's the other question I get a lot, to get the babies home together. Each baby develops at a different rate. They're usually actually pretty close together. In our case, our babies stayed very close together developmentally, but one did go home the day before the other, which was very hard because then we had to sort of revamp. Like, here we are, we had these babies, they're delivered, we're figuring out how to visit in the NICU and do all these like things that weren't what we were planning. And now, we had to reinvent everything again because now we've got one at home and one at the NICU. And in our case, they allowed, even with COVID, they allowed us to bring the twin back so that we could still come at our regular visiting time. So those are things to ask. When discharge is getting close, one baby might be going home before the other. What arrangements can you make so that you can bring the twin back with them? Is that allowed? In our case, they actually kept the isolette that belonged to twin B in the room so we could bring him back and he could sleep in there. But they also do tell you, we're not doing anything for him, we're not responsible for him, but you can bring him back with you. Developmental wise, it's very hard as a parent to not compare them. There were many times along the way that, like, we were thinking that one was having more trouble than he was because he just had a different temperament. So we definitely very early on got like occupational therapy involved and speech therapy involved, who sort of guided us along the way. We did have twin A just sort of draggled a little bit. He was about a day or two behind twin B on like learning the new skills. So that made us worry. And even after we got home, it's hard not to compare them and say, oh, well, like this one's doing all of these things and the other one's like just sitting there. Is something wrong with him? So that is pretty normal, I think, when you have any set of kids, but when they're the exact same age, it's like hard not to compare them. That's a lot of the questions. Is it harder? I never had another NICU experience, so I never really had much to compare it to. So I don't know if having two in the NICU is harder than having one. I know having any of them in the NICU was pretty hard. So those are a lot of the main questions, and I really hope that if anybody else is like pregnant with twins or expecting twins or have twins in the NICU, that you feel comfortable reaching out to ask me any personal questions you have, because it's hard for me to remember right now things that I wondered about when they were still there. But those are the biggest ones. So thanks. Have a great Friday.